I hated the taste of alcohol. I still do. So weed was my choice of drugs. So I would smoke some weed.
Because didn't you have a child outside your marriage around this time?
Yes, I did.
And then you actually told your wife that.
Yes.
And that caused a divorce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you heard what's going on with Smokey Robinson? A Motown soul, an R&B legend who helped shape American music, an 85-year-old man still standing on stage singing like time never touched him. But then, a storm came out of nowhere. Chilling accusations from someone who worked inside Smokey Robinson's own home. Horrifying stories about the unethical behavior of a legend that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Why would a living icon suddenly find himself in the center of a firestorm? Is Smokey Robinson's 60-year legacy now at risk of collapsing? This isn't just a scandal. This is a story about power fame and the dark side no one has ever dared to tell. Don't look away. And this story is only beginning. Detroit, 1940. A harsh industrial city buried in factory smoke and echoing with police sirens. Crime gangs, racial tension. Everything felt like it was ready to crush the future of the kids growing up here. William Smokey Robinson Jr. was born on February 19, 1940, in an old wooden house in the North End neighborhood. Smokey carried mixed heritage African-American French and Native American. His father, William Robinson Sr., was a quiet man, working labor jobs in the industrial city. His mother, Flossie Robinson, was gentle, intelligent, and loved music. But life was merciless. She passed away when Smokey was just 10 years old. That loss shattered his childhood. From then on, Robinson moved in with his grandmother, the most important woman in his life. But surprisingly, inside his grandmother's small, struggling home, there was a treasure. An old wooden cabinet filled with more than 2,000 records blues, doo-wop, gospel, jazz. Robinson couldn't afford music lessons. No teacher. Just a voice, a mind full of melodies, and a heart full of dreams. At 15, while other kids were still running around the neighborhood, Smokey formed his first music group, the Matadors. He wrote his own songs and practiced every night. And then one day, destiny knocked. In 1957, Smokey Robinson, at 17, brought his schoolboy group, the Matadors, the early version of the Miracles, to audition for songwriter and producer Berry Gordy, who at that time was also struggling to find his direction. The audition took place in a small room, and no one could have imagined it would end up reshaping American music. Berry Gordy stood silent for a few seconds. Then he said the line Smokey would remember for the rest of his life. "You just showed me the future of music." Berry Gordy becomes the mentor. Smokey becomes the trailblazer. After the audition, Berry Gordy officially signed the Miracles in 1958. He began training Smokey Robinson in every detail: how to write a hit, how to craft an addictive 8 to 12 word hook, how to build storytelling R&B. Smokey absorbed everything so quickly that Gordy admitted he had never seen raw talent like that before. The results came immediately. In September 1960, Smokey wrote "Shop Around" the song that took Motown from a tiny label to a national force. It reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold more than 1 million copies. It was also Motown's first single to truly break into mainstream America. Motown exploded from this moment on. From 1961 to 1967, Smokey and the Miracles became Gordy's golden goose. Songs like "You've Really Got a Hold on Me," 1962, "Ooh Baby Baby," 1965, "Tracks of My Tears," 1965, and "The Tears of a Clown," 1970, weren't just hits, they became anthems of an entire generation. They sold millions, kept breaking into the top 10, and defined the signature Motown sound: youthful, soulful, emotional, but full of life. If Marvin Gaye was the soul, the Temptations were the style, and Diana Ross was the star, then Smokey Robinson was the blueprint that allowed every legend to be born. But Smokey's greatest power came from behind the scenes. From 1963 to 1972, Smokey became Motown's hit machine. He turned Marvin Gaye into a true star with "Ain't That Peculiar," 1965, and "I'll Be Doggone," 1966. He gave the Temptations a timeless masterpiece. "My Girl," 1964, a song still sung on stages 60 years later. And he helped Mary Wells become the first black woman to dominate American radio. With "My Guy," 1964, a number 1 Billboard Hot 100 hit. Smokey wrote so many songs that his catalog grew to more than 1,500 compositions, one of the largest songwriting collections in American music history. Berry Gordy saw this. He trusted Smokey so deeply that he brought him onto the executive board in 1964, gave him authority to train artists in 1966, and by 1969 appointed him vice president of Motown Records, the second most powerful person in the company after Gordy himself. Smokey was only 29. During these years, Motown became the first black-owned label to dominate the entire country. Annual revenue reached $20 to $50 million, around $180 to $400 million today, with Billboard topping hits every quarter and Motown artists everywhere, radio, TV, magazines. But the brighter the spotlight grew, the more chaotic Motown became. The early 70s were suffocating. Marvin Gaye wanted creative freedom. The Temptations kept changing members. Diana Ross chased global stardom, and Berry Gordy struggled against commercial pressure. Every artist carried a massive ego. Every group was a battlefield. Every album was a gamble. And standing in the middle of it all was Smokey Robinson, a burden far too heavy for a man barely in his 30s. After more than 15 years leading the Miracles and keeping Motown running smoothly, Smokey Robinson reached a turning point. In 1972, at age 32, he decided to leave the group to focus on his executive role at Motown and spend time with his family. By then, Smokey was exhausted after a decade of non-stop work writing, producing, managing, performing, and mediating internal conflicts. He stepped away from the stage, but his music career didn't stop. In July 1973, Smokey released his debut solo album, Smokey. While it didn't explode immediately, it opened a new chapter. The real breakthrough would come a few years later. 1979 became the year of his powerful comeback. That was when Cruisin' was born. Cruisin' became one of the smoothest, most sensual, timeless love songs in R&B history. It climbed into the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100, sold millions, and remains a date-night classic for generations. Smokey, nearing 40, once again dominated American radio. But success always carries shadows. Behind the glittering lights of the Motown stage was a private life full of conflict, pain, and complexity. A weight Smokey Robinson had to carry for decades. Smokey Robinson's private life, the secrets behind the spotlight. In 1959, when Motown was just beginning to take shape, Smokey Robinson married Claudette Rogers, the only female member of the Miracles at the time. They became the label's golden couple. Smokey suave and naturally gifted, writing the love songs that put Motown on the map, and Claudette gentle, intelligent, always standing behind him through every step of his career. In the eyes of the public, they were the perfect model of love. A grand romance under the stage lights, two artists rising together to the top of Motown. They had two children, Berry Robinson, born 1968, named after Berry Gordy, the man who launched Smokey's career, and Tamla Robinson, born 1969, named after Tamla Records, the label that later became Motown. To Motown fans, those two children were the symbol of a true Motown family. By the 70s, as Smokey's career reached its peak, rumors about his complicated love life began to surface, something almost every Motown superstar at the time had to face. Then, in 1984, everything blew up. Smokey publicly admitted he had a child with another woman, a boy named Trey Robinson, while still living with Claudette. The news hit Motown like a bomb. Not because cheating scandals were rare, but because Smokey was the last person anyone expected. He was the clean, elegant, gentlemanly figure. The man who wrote Ooh Baby Baby and Tracks of My Tears. Songs full of heartbreak, honesty, and tenderness. And now he had become the one hurting the woman who had stood by him for nearly 3 decades. Motown managed artist images extremely tightly in those days, and the scandal left the label scrambling. Claudette filed for divorce after 27 years together. The separation dragged on until 1986, heavy, painful, full of tears. In his memoir, Smokey wrote, "It was a tearful divorce that I brought upon myself." But the broken marriage was only part of it. Smokey faced an even darker nightmare addiction. In the early 1980s, Smokey fell into a spiral of cocaine, a battle he described as when darkness becomes your most dangerous friend. He deteriorated to the point where he could no longer control his life. His career nearly froze, and his health collapsed. In his memoir, Smokey wrote, "I came very, very close to dying. Smokey survived that dark chapter with the help of his family friends, and music the only thing that never betrayed him. But the scars stayed with him, becoming shadows he carried for decades. They formed the foundation of his personal tragedy, a brilliant life filled with deep wounds before he stepped into his era of rebirth. The post-Motown career, a comeback no one saw coming. After the darkest years of his life, Smokey Robinson returned stronger than anyone expected. In 1981, he released the mega hit Being With You, a song that reached #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #1 in the UK, turning him into a global solo star at age 41. The song sold over 4 million copies, proving Smokey could still rule the music world with his soft, bittersweet voice. By 1987, Smokey exploded again with the album One Heartbeat. It's 2 hits just to see her. And One Heartbeat brought him back to Billboard and made him an icon of mature 80s R&B. Smokey earned the first Grammy of his career, a deeply emotional victory after decades of contribution. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, Smokey became a fixture of American pop culture. He appeared on talk shows, TV programs, national events, and was even invited to perform for U.S. presidents. He became the embodiment of timeless class, elegance, and sophistication in traditional R&B. Smokey didn't just contribute to black music, he defined it. Over a career spanning from 1958 to now, Smokey has written more than 1,500 officially credited songs. Many colleagues say the real number may reach 3,000, including demos that were never released. Among them, he has over 40 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 as a performer, and more than 70 hits he wrote for others, from Marvin Gaye and the Temptations to Mary Wells. No one at Motown wrote more hits than Smokey. No one told stories through music as beautifully and deeply as he did. That's why Smokey was given a rare title, the Poet Laureate of Soul. A name the entire music industry agrees with because Smokey's lyrics aren't just words made to sell records. They are poetry, emotion, and slices of life delivered with a level of sensitivity very few can reach. And the world recognized that. In 1987, Smokey Robinson was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, one of the first Motown artists to enter the Temple of American Music. He was also added to the Songwriters Hall of Fame for his groundbreaking contributions to songwriting. His name appears on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, alongside the greatest icons in entertainment. His highest honor came in 2002, when President George W. Bush awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the most prestigious medal an American civilian can receive, given to those who deeply impact culture and society. Very few musicians have ever been awarded this. Smokey is one of them. That same year, Smokey married Frances Glandney, his second marriage. This one was quieter, calmer, far less dramatic. Frances wasn't an artist. She was a designer who lived a peaceful, private lifestyle. They didn't have children together, but Frances was seen as Smokey's closest companion in the post-Motown years, when he recovered from addiction, returned to the stage, and received the Medal of Freedom from President Bush. From 2017 to 2024, something unexpected happened. Smokey became an internet phenomenon. In his early 80s, he appeared at award shows with glowing skin and a youthful face that sent social media into a frenzy. Smokey is 80 but looks better than my 40-year-old self. Every photo of him went viral. People called him the sexy uncle of Motown. And then in 2023, Smokey shocked the world by releasing the album Gasms, with songs, titles, and artwork so sensual that everyone was stunned. At age 83, Smokey was still creating, still pushing boundaries, still playing with artistic limits in his own way. He became living proof that legends never retire. And because Smokey Robinson was still active, still touring, still everywhere, when the storm of accusations hit at age 85, the world was left stunned. The 2024-2025 storm of accusations, the biggest lawsuit of Smokey Robinson's life, a 60-year legacy shaken. Everything began in May 2025. That was when 4 former employees who once worked inside Smokey Robinson's home simultaneously filed a lawsuit with the Los Angeles Superior Court. In their complaint, they claimed the workplace was unprofessional and emotionally overwhelming. They said they were treated unfairly, yelled at, insulted, and denied minimum wage and proper overtime pay. The lawsuit originally centered on labor issues, compensation, and working conditions. but the damages they demanded reached $50 million, arguing that years of mistreatment caused severe emotional harm. Smokey's attorney, Christopher Frost, immediately dismissed it, calling it a plan to exploit his fame for money. Everyone thought the story would end there, but it didn't. November 2025, the shocking twist. The lawsuit gets amended. Last month, 2 former employees suddenly filed an amendment to the already viral $50 million lawsuit. Jane Doe 5, a housekeeper of 6 years. John Doe 1, an auto detailer who began working there in 2013. Both claimed that while working at Smokey's Chatsworth residence, they were placed in situations that crossed workplace boundaries. That Smokey Robinson at 85 behaved in ways that made them uncomfortable. Moments that left them uneasy, anxious, and ultimately forced them to walk away from their jobs. This is the turning point that has made the case increasingly complex and irresistible to the media. According to the complaint, Jane Doe 5 worked for the Robinson family from 2005 to 2011. She stated that Robinson frequently called her to the second-floor bathroom to scrub his back, that he asked for assistance in private areas of the house that made her feel outside the scope of her job. She said she fell into long-term panic and psychological distress, even undergoing breast reduction surgery in 2015, so she wouldn't draw attention. Jane Doe 5 also accused Smokey's wife, Frances Robinson, of creating a hostile work environment, regularly yelling blaming staff when they got injured and ignoring complaints about her husband's behavior. Jane also reiterated claims that both husband and wife failed to pay minimum wage and overtime. John Doe 1 was hired in 2013 to care for vehicles and the yard. He claimed that during his time working there, he encountered moments that left him unsure how to react. He described situations where Smokey made personal remarks and invited him into a room inside. After the incident, his contract was discontinued. A year later, the Robinsons invited him back, but the behavior continued. After hearing similar stories from previous employees, John Doe 1 decided to quit for good and join the lawsuit. Unlike the female plaintiffs, he focused only on emotional distress and did not request wage-related compensation. What surprised many is that in the complaint, Frances Robinson Smokey's wife was named directly. This meant the case was no longer just Smokey being sued. It became a lawsuit against the entire Robinson family. Smokey Robinson's attorney, Christopher Frost, rejected all allegations, calling them a coordinated fabrication meant to damage the reputation of an American music icon. Frost said the plaintiffs were hiding behind anonymous identities to make claims he called baseless. He also stated that Smokey and Frances Robinson would fight to the end to clear their names. The next hearing is scheduled for January 6th, and the full trial is set for October 2027. A lawsuit that will drag on for years. An 85-year-old legend standing in the center of the storm, and a 60-year legacy facing its most brutal test ever. This isn't just a lawsuit, it is a battle between reputation memory and one haunting question. What really happened behind the doors of one of the greatest icons in American music is the legacy breaking. The 2024-2025 storm of accusations hasn't just brought Smokey Robinson to court. It has placed his entire 60-year legacy in its most dangerous position ever. The frightening part isn't the legal paperwork. The frightening part is the public reaction. The moment the amended complaint became public, the internet split into 2 clear sides. Those defending him. Smokey would never do that. They are the loyal fans, people who grew up with "Ooh Baby Baby" cruisin' tracks of My Tears. They see Smokey as a spiritual father of soul music. They believe the lawsuit is nothing but a money grab, a plot to destroy his name. The other side consists of people asking, what has Motown been hiding all these decades? This group doesn't rush to say Smokey is guilty or innocent, but they ask a terrifying question. Is Motown's dark side finally coming out? Because Motown's history, beautiful, glamorous, full of lights, was never spotless. It came with internal battles, crushing pressure. Berry Gordy's strict control and shadows covered tightly during the 60s and 70s. Is there more behind the Motown legend than we were ever told? American media immediately placed Smokey on the danger list alongside older icons who lost their public image through accusations and lawsuits. Bill Cosby once called America's dad. P. Diddy, the bad boy empire, shaken. R. Kelly, an R&B legend, facing heavy sentences. And now, Smokey Robinson's name appearing in the same conversation. This doesn't mean Smokey is right or wrong, but the media doesn't wait for slow truth. They care about the sensational. The more allegations surface, the more Smokey's career is placed under a microscope. And slowly, the biggest question is no longer, did Smokey do it? It becomes, can Motown's legacy survive this storm? An unfinished story, the other legacies beyond the scandal. And from here, we step into another chapter, one very few people ever mention yet. It is the most important part to understand Smokey Robinson as a whole human being, not just a shaken icon. Health struggles, the moments he nearly lost his voice. Smokey Robinson is famous for his sugar-sweet voice, soft, warm, smooth, so heavenly that the entire Motown family called him the voice of an angel. But few know that this voice once stood on the edge of disappearing forever. There was a time when Smokey couldn't sing a full line because of inflamed vocal cords. His voice became so raspy that he had to sit in silence, listen back to his recordings, and ask himself, is that really me? Decades of non-stop touring weakened his lungs. Sometimes simply walking onto the stage made his chest tighten, forcing him to fight for each breath. The breaking point came in the late 90s when Smokey lost his breath in the studio and nearly had to retire. Doctors warned that if he kept pushing, the damage could be permanent. And that was the moment Smokey confronted the deepest fear of his life. Not aging, not losing fame, but losing his voice. The gift that saved him, fed him, and lifted him out of poverty. From then on, Smokey committed to a discipline that bordered on brutal meditating every morning, practicing breathing exercises daily, dieting like an athlete. He once said something haunting, "My voice is a gift from God. I have to protect it at all costs." The untold secret, Smokey once considered becoming a minister. After falling into addiction after the divorce, after years of sleepless nights, Smokey genuinely believed music might no longer be his path. He sought quiet, turned to meditation, yoga, and spirituality as a way to bring peace back into his mind. There was a period when Smokey spent months attending Bible classes, sitting in on sermons, and seriously considering leaving music altogether to become a minister. For him, it wasn't impulsive. It felt like a calling, a desire to heal others, after he himself had come back from the brink. He once said, "I thought about leaving showbiz completely. I wanted to heal. I wanted to help. I wanted peace." But music strangely pulled him back. Smokey's voice wasn't just a career. It was the last thread keeping him from falling into the abyss. If you see Smokey on stage, you see a polished entertainer. But if you see Smokey in the community, you see a completely different man. A true heart, community work he never bragged about. Detroit is the city that raised him, and he spent the rest of his life paying that debt of gratitude. For decades, Smokey didn't just sign a few charity checks for show. He stood inside the community working like an ordinary person, sometimes even harder than an ordinary person. He funded schools in Detroit, rebuilt music rooms, bought instruments for students, and created programs for Black children trying to escape poverty. Many of the kids Smokey helped back then are now musicians, teachers, engineers, even soldiers. And all of them speak about him with unmistakable gratitude. Smokey didn't stop there. He founded youth support funds, awarded scholarships to students who couldn't afford school, and joined dozens, even more than 50 charitable campaigns without ever alerting the media. To Smokey, doing good didn't require cameras, no applause, no recognition, just the right thing. One volunteer once said, "He showed up early, helped with everything before the tables were even set, and left last. No one would ever guess he was an international superstar." It was that persistence and open heart that caught the attention of the White House. In 2002, Smokey Robinson received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor an American civilian can receive, not just for the music he gave the world, but for the lives he transformed behind the scenes. Smokey once said that every time he helped a child get a chance, he felt like he was helping the little broke version of himself from long ago. Because no one understands better than him. Sometimes all it takes is one hand at the right moment, one door opening at the right time, and your whole life can change. And through all the storms, the arguments, the accusations, one thing remains undeniable. Smokey Robinson is a man who saved his community with his heart long before he saved music with his voice. When you look back at Smokey Robinson's life, you notice something strange. The people who write the most beautiful songs are often the ones who carry the deepest scars. Smokey is proof. He is the poor kid from Detroit, Berry Gordy's closest friend, the sole writer of Motown, the voice that made millions cry, the man who lost everything then rebuilt himself, the man America honored with the Medal of Freedom. A 60-year legend, but also a human being full of flaws and conflict. And now, as the 2024-2025 storm hits, Smokey faces the biggest test of his life. Not a test in court, but a test before history is the legacy he built strong enough to survive. The truth may take years to surface. His reputation may continue to shake. Motown's legacy may crack. But one thing remains unchanged. Smokey Robinson is one of the last living members of the generation that created modern soul music. And his life deserves to be told in full, both the light and the darkness. What do you think about this whole story? Is Smokey Robinson being misunderstood? Or is Motown's past finally showing itself? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter, where the deepest secrets of celebrity lives will be revealed.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.